Praise Yahweh.
Praise Yahweh.
The supreme lawgiver, the supreme judge, the supreme I am that I am, gave the laws that suspend all the planets in the skies and in the solar systems. And they stay there according to His Word. But Judeo-Christianity says Yahweh's laws have been put away with the crucifixion. They spew all this poison from the pulpit that you can do anything you want, anarchy. But Yahweh still loves you. When the book says, sin and sin some more, and Yahweh will turn from you, and judgment will fall upon you. See, this nation right now is under judgment because the watchmen on the wall have allowed the others to take over. The law Moses set down is specific. Don't teach the neighbor nations what you know. Don't educate them. Don't allow a neighbor nationality, and in our case that would be a third world nationality, to rule over this once great nation. But see, people don't want to believe that this United States and Canada is the regathering of the 13 families of the man called Israel. But we're not going into that today. We're going to teach the children of Israel of lawful disobedience today. There is lawful disobedience, but that's not lawful disobedience to Yahweh. It's to a corrupt system that Judeo-Christianity is putting all your families in bed with the poison and with the corruption. It says that your family has to go along with what the government says and don't cry about it because God put them there. But, not to get ahead of myself, lawful disobedience. I'm Yahweh's name witness. Teacher Ray Bunzow. Write me a letter. Send me a statement on this lecture. P.O. Box 143, Roscommon, Michigan. Zip code 48653. In the once great United States. Today is Shisleu the 27th on the Hebrew calendar. 7,516 years from the time that Yahweh promised Adam to redeem the original sin. Shisleu is the 8th sacred month and the 2nd civil month, right at the end of the 8th month. I'm going to start out in Joshua 7:2 shortly. See, the churches out here have you believing that everything that comes out of Washington, D.C., you have to adhere to. You have to believe them. You have to believe the poison on this pulpit. See, not only that, through this fiber optic connected society we live in today, gets your mind distracted with statistics, with games, with analysis. You can look up anything. You don't have to pay attention to what's going on in the political system because it's rolling right over you. Life is great. Now I call the government and ask, when am I supposed to go to bed? What time should I get up? What should I eat today? May I go to town? May I drive? May I call my family by the telephone? Should I go to the doctor if I don't feel well? May I turn on the heat yet? How many groceries should I purchase this month? Now remember, if you have more than a 30-day supply of food in your pantry, you're a terrorist according to the Patriot Act. How many groceries should I purchase this month? Is the meat safe to eat? May I plant a garden this spring? What kind of dog food should I purchase? May I get my prescriptions filled? Do I have to buy Chinese clothing? Will I be able to eat the fish I catch? Is our water safe to drink? Oh, the glory of the government that cares for us, cradle to the grave. Oh, yes, do I need to reserve a cemetery plot? Or have they a plot for me? They've got a plot for us, all right. Grades are getting low. The teens are getting high. That 12-year-old is pregnant and her parents wonder why. A first grader's swearing. A third grader's been raped. Just take a good look around you. Isn't the system great? Who isn't faded these days? Teens are sending nudes. Kids are getting beaten. The teachers see the bruises and no calls for help. This isn't what we need. The marks of taunt and yelling, parents are divorced. That 14-year-old is drinking beer. This can't get any worse. A little girl has killed herself. Nobody seems to care. Another kid's been expelled for a stupid dare. But it needs change. Our world system is officially broken. Joshua chapter 2. Now, for Israel to understand, we have to look into our history. One more thing here. Thank you. Aristotle wrote this little quote. It is the mark of an educated mind. Now this is someone that hasn't been indoctrinated. An educated mind will challenge the teacher to prove what he's saying is correct and not just accept what he says. It's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without having to accept that thought. Now, put that behind your right ear. If you're educated, you do not have to believe the news, the politicians, or the poison at the pulpit without making them prove exactly what they say. Just like Obamacare comes down the line now and says, take my Obamacare and you can keep your physician. Oh, well, right. I didn't really mean that, because the 20,000 pages for Obamacare has now gone to 22,000 pages? Yep. Because they can't keep, the system's broke. The system's broke. Joshua chapter 2 for a history lesson on legal disobedience. Joshua 2 verse 1. And Joshua the son of Nun sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly, say, go and view the land, even Jericho. And they went into a harlot's house. Now Rahab gets a bad cut here, because she's on the wall, she's in the business district, she's close to the courthouse, she's a merchant, and not a harlot, and not a whore, and not dealing in flesh. And the 2 spies went into Rahab and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, behold, there are men in the city tonight of the children of Israel to spy out the country. Now, how did they know that? Was there a camera down on the corner watching what everybody's doing? Or did they just have natural snitches all over the place? Or is it the people of Israel stood out so much from all what everybody else looked like? And the king of Jericho sent unto Rahab, saying, bring forth the men that went in, which are entered into thine house, for they have arrived to search out and spy all the country. And the woman took the 2 men and hid them. And thus there arrived men unto her, but I wist not whence they were. And it came to pass about the time of the shutting of the gate, when it was dark, that the men went out, and whither the men went, I know not. Pursue after them quickly, for ye shall overtake them. Rahab told the illegal officials in this town to protect her own race. I don't know where they went. She hid them on the roof, under the flax, where she would make garments from the flax, a natural fiber, similar to cotton. Now I'm going to go over to 1 Samuel 26 shortly. But you have to remember, if you're dealing with an illegal criminal system, you are not obligated to be honest any more than they are.
That's right. Like Obama.
1 Samuel 26. See, at a certain point in your life, you have to stop and realize that the things you think you know may not be the actuality in this world system today on how to approach this one world system that's coming right through the poison on the church Judeo-Christianity pulpits today. 1 Samuel 26:7. So David and Abishai went to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping within the trenches, and his spear stuck in the ground, and his bolster, and Abner and the people lay around about him. Then said Abishai to David, Yahweh has delivered thine enemy into thy hand this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, and thy spear even to the earth at once, and I will not smite him a second time. And David said to Abishai, Destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against Yahweh's anointed? See, this is where King David had run for Saul, from King Saul, for years and years and years, and had an opportunity to send King Saul back to the Father. But he refused to do that because Saul had been anointed king. Even though the people, through their galactic stupidity, said, we want a king like the other nations. Just like our people here today. We want change. Galactic stupidity.
Yeah, we got it.
It goes all around. It's not just in this neighborhood, or not just in this state. But King David would not even allow his manservant to kill King Saul because it was not prudent. Now let's go over to 1 Kings chapter 18. See, these 501c3 FEMA churches bring forth this evil that you have to obey this world system. You do not have to obey this world system. 1 Kings 18, verse 1. Now here is a good example of legal disobedience. And the time arrived after many days that the word of Yahweh went unto Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go show thyself unto Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. And Elijah went to show himself unto Ahab, and there was a sore famine in Samaria. Now think, why doesn't it say Israel here? See, Israel wasn't actually referred to in the old parchments as Israel. It was Samaria, named after the capital city. And there was a terrible famine in Samaria. And Ahab called Obadiah, which was the governor of Ahab's house. See, Ahab had Obadiah do all the things for the house, just like Joseph did in Egypt. Verse 4, 1 Kings 18. For it was so, when Jezebel cut off the prophets of Yahweh, that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them 50 in a cave and fed them bread and water. Jezebel, the daughter of a Baal priest, cut off all the food and rations to these prophets over at the school. Oh, just like in 1929 when the stock market crashed here in the United States and the Great Depression started. And all the theology schools couldn't pay their bills. But the gangster banksters came along, and through the side door they send over their money managers and pay off the loans on the theological seminaries. But they had to install rabbis as teachers at that point in the early 1930s.
And that Jesus was a Jew.
And see, just like Jezebel cut off the funding to her theological seminary, but Obadiah took 100 and put 50 in this cave and 50 in that cave and made sure that they were fed. Let's go over to 2 Kings. Chapter 1. This story starts out where Ahaziah fell through a lattice in the upper chamber that was in Samaria, and he was sick. And he sent messengers out to go inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron. Now that's a god with a small g, because you couldn't hear the inflection of the small g there. It's another pronoun. Just like God with a capital G is still a pronoun, but you can't hear the inflection of the capital G if you don't read it. So this God that Ahaziah sent to inquire whether he was going to recover or not. But the angel of Yahweh said to Elijah the Tishbite, Arise and go meet this messenger of the king of Samaria, and say unto him, It is not because there is not a God in Israel. See, there's a God in Ekron. Is there a God in Israel? How can you tell the difference when you're in speech? That's why you use the name Yahweh from the Aramaic tetragrammaton. Yod-Vahe. Is there no Yahweh in Israel that you go inquire of Beelzebub and Ekron? Now jump right over to verse 8. 2 Kings chapter 1, verse 8. And they answered the king. He was a hairy man, and girt with a girdle of leather about his loins. And the king said, It's Elijah the Tishbite. Then the king sent unto him a captain of 50, with his 50, and he sent up to him, and behold, he sat on the top of a hill, and spake unto him, Thou man of Yahweh, the king hath said, Get down here. And Elijah answered and said to the captain of 50, If I be a man of Yahweh, then let fire fall down from heaven and consume thee and thy 50, And there came down fire from heaven and consumed him and the 50.
Praise
How many times does this go on? Time and time again, until the last guy comes along and says, will you please come and pay a visit to the king? See, now, was that legal disobedience to the king? It's putting the king in place for going outside the Levites. Go over to Jeremiah chapter 26. See, when it talks about the four horsemen of the apocalypse, actually what that's doing, those four horsemen, they're actually pouring out the stupidity upon man that they are themselves already. Read and search into that. See, these things that come out of the Judeo-Christianity is nothing but total legal fiction. Legal fiction. Just like on the news broadcast. Legal fiction. Everything that they tell you is correct, but it's not right. Jeremiah 26, verse 1. In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Joash, king of Judea, this word from Yahweh saying, thus saith Yahweh, stand in the court of Yahweh's house and speak unto all the cities of Judea, which go to worship in Yahweh's house, all the words I command thee to speak unto them, diminish not a word. Jump over to verse 8 to pick this story up. And the time arrived when Jeremiah had made an end of speaking all that Yahweh had commanded him to speak unto the people, that the priests and the prophets and all the people took him, saying, thou shalt surely die. See, anytime you bring truth forward in a time of evil, it's not what the people want to hear. Just give me them words that tingle my ears. I want to feel good. God is love. God is love. Oh, He doesn't care what you do. Do what you want and just tell Him, oh, you're sorry. He'll just forgive you.
And keep on doing it.
Anarchy. Didn't Paul write you and tell you just because you have the liberty, you can't pile up them sins and keep sinning and piling them up? You can't keep asking for the same forgiveness? It's just like the health food laws. Think. Where does it one place give you permission to eat a scavenger?
That's right.
The crawfish.
It ain't there.
The shrimp. The possum. The pig. The eagle.
The rabbit.
The crow. All these things. The conies.
Squirrel.
Everything. That is a scavenger out there cleaning the earth up to keep the bacteria from building too great. Don't eat the scavenger. But the Judeo-Christian, politically correct fiction from the pulpit says, do whatever you want. God don't care no more. You got this grace. You're under grace. Do what you want. Verse 8. You shall surely die. Verse 9. Why hast thou prophesied in the name of Yahweh, saying, this house shall surely be like Shiloh, and the city shall be desolate without an inhabitant? And all the people were gathered against Jeremiah in the house of Yahweh. When the prince of Judea heard these things, then they came up from the king's house unto the house of Yahweh, and sat down at the entry of the gate of Yahweh's house. Then spake the priests and the prophets unto the princesses. The princess. That's the male guys, you know. Not the princesses. They spoke unto Jeremiah and unto all the princes, to all the people, saying, Yahweh sent me to prophesy against this house and against this city and all the words that ye heard. Therefore now amend your ways and your doings. Obey the word of Yahweh. and Yahweh will repent of the evil that He has pronounced against you.
Right.
If you repent, turn from your evil ways, put your scavengers out in the field and leave them there. But know ye for certain, if you put me to death, ye shall surely bring innocent blood condemnation upon yourself, and upon this city, and upon the inhabitants thereof. For of all the truth of Yahweh has sent me unto you to speak all these words into your ear about legal disobedience to this world system today. Now just think, what about Daniel? Wasn't Daniel defiant of the world system to be thrown into the lion's den? What about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? And what did they do to get thrown in a fiery furnace? They were disobedient to the government rules and regulations. So what happened? They got thrown in a fire. And everybody was amazed.
7 times hotter.
That's right, 7 times hotter. Next, please. Let's go over to Acts chapter 5. Now see, this is where we are in this government system today.
No. Is that the Yellow Cliff? Yep. Going to the Yellow Cliff.
This is where we're at in this world system today. This is a case that's gone before the Supreme Court. Now just think, that went before the Supreme Court here not too long ago, whether or not they really have to pray at the city council meeting. That's a no-brainer. If you don't want to hear the prayer, you don't even have to go in there. But every individual that's sworn into Congress has to swear to God. They will uphold the Constitution, even though they don't. What about how much can I give to a national candidate? See, what the Supreme Court really has to look at, who's legally obligated to vote? Did you know my wife's not even constitutionally legally obligated to vote? She doesn't have that right. But we've been Jewed out of that right and given to all these sick individuals out here that can't read and write nor own property. The only ones, according to the Constitution, legally provided the right to vote are landowners.
Of age.
Unless the others put a burden of too much tax on the landowners that they don't have to share that burden, but vote the tax onto the landowners to pay that. Now here we are. This is very interesting. There are 2 ways to change laws. One way is tedious. You have to get a majority of citizens to share your views, motivate them to vote for the representatives, get a majority of the representatives to vote for a bill, then get the president to sign the bill. The other way to change laws is very simple. You get an activist judge to change the definition of words that are in existing laws. Now, earlier this year, on March 18th, the Supreme Court heard the case of District of Columbia versus Heller. Now, what does the District of Columbia go to the Supreme Court for? It's not part of the Union. It's just the District for Commerce of the States United. A case regarding the Second Amendment, which reads, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security and free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, the American Civil Liberties Union, communist organization here, backed and funded by, I believe one of the funders is Progressive Insurance, and a few other Jew individuals. The ACLU argued that the term, the people, should have its new definition changed to the state militia, as the ACLU website states under the section Gun Control. We believe that the constitutional right to bear arms is primarily a collective one, intended mainly to protect the right of the states to maintain militias. The ACLU therefore believes that the Second Amendment does not confer an unlimited right upon individuals to own guns. Next please.
Yes.
Using the ACLU's new definition of the people, the Second Amendment would read as follows: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people, the state militia, to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The obscurity of the ACLU's definition of the people is revealed when its definition is applied to the rest of the Constitution and Bill of Rights. Preamble of the Constitution. We, the state militia of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish this Constitution. Article 1, Section 2. The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the state militia. Next, please. The 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated by the United States by the Constitution or prohibited by the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people, the states' militia. Up, please. The 18th Amendment. The Senate and the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state elected by the state militias. In U.S. versus Verdugo Arqualdez, 494 U.S. 247, 288, 1990, Justice J. Brennan Jr. argued. The term, the people, is better understood as a rhetorical counterpoint to the government. This right that we reserve to the people were to protect all those subjects of the government. See, they want to reduce the people not from being the government and the representatives, the senators, being chosen to represent the government. Justice Brennan continued, the Bill of Rights did not purport to create rights, rather they are designed, the Bill of Rights, to prohibit our government from infringing rights and liberties presumed to be pre-existing. Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment's drafting history shows that its purpose was to protect the people of the United States, the actual government, against arbitrary action by their own government representatives.
So be it.
The ACLU's definition is more disingenuous when one realizes the U.S. Constitution already covered the subject of militias in Article 1, verse 8. Disingenuous means frankless or the lack of sincerity. So, now see, are these preachers in the pulpits out here in Judea Christianity, are they free from impunity?
No.
They're going to be judged just as I'm going to be judged.
That's right. More so.
I'm not going to be judged. Let's go over here to Acts chapter 5. This is recent history. This is history after the cross. This is months after Emmanuel had been hung on a cross, laid in the grave for 3 days, and then resurrected and flew home. Acts 5, we're going to start here in verse 17. the high priest here, now he's a Sadducee. These are the Edomite high priest family line that took over the Levites' job back when Antioch Epiphanes in 172 BC set up the Edomites over the land of Judea. This is the history behind how the Edomite Jews took over the high priesthood in Judea. Now see, as you read through this book, little sidetrack here for a second. You have to figure out who's Jew and who's Jew. Because see, you've got common Christianity, those that don't really fear Christ but call themselves Christians, believe that everybody's a Jew that lived in Judea and lived in Gad and lived in Samaria and lived in Dan and all the 12 tribes and the Levites. They're all Jews. But see, there's a separation here. That's like saying you've got Israel and then you've got the other Israel. Huh? Well, yeah, they're the Jews who are of Israel. Just like you've got the Jews from Judea that are not really Jews, because first mention of the Jews, they all lived down in Idumea. Now with that being said, verse 17, the Idumean high priest rose up, and they were all with him, which were of the sect of the Sadducees, were filled with indignation. And they laid hands on the apostles, and they put them in a common prison. But the angel of Yahweh by night opened the prison doors and brought them forth. Go stand and speak in the temple to the people all the words of this truth. See, the book says life. But there's a life in the truth, and there's death. There's death. Where's that come from? Legal fiction. Legal fiction. Go down here to verse 26 now. Peter and the apostles, they've been thrown in jail. The angel of Yahweh came in, blinded everybody, opened the shackles, got them out. And they're out here. And when the high priest sent for them in the morning, they're not there. Everybody wondered, who did they bribe to get out? Verse 26. Then went the captain with his officers and brought the apostles without violence, for they feared the Judean people, lest they should have been stoned. See, the Edomite army. This is the same Edomite army that hung Emmanuel on a cross. It wasn't the Italians or the Romans. And when they had brought the apostles, they set them before the council, and the high priest asked them, saying, Did not we straightway command you, just like your preacher's going to tell you to follow these officials when they shut the cities down and just go off to the FEMA camps, because you'll have another FEMA church over in the FEMA camp. The high priest, did we not straightway command you that you should not teach in this name? And behold, you have filled Jerusalem with all your understanding. It says doctrine here, but doctrine comes from legal fiction. And instead, to bring this man's blood upon us, then Peter and the others all answered, and I can just imagine this in unison. We need to obey Yahweh. We need to obey Yahweh. Because your rule doesn't matter next to Almighty Heavenly Father Yahweh. Just like Washington, D.C., they do not have unlimited power. Do not have unlimited power. Next, please. From here, we're going to go to Romans 13. After I read through this little thing here. And that the said Constitution be never construed to authorize Congress to infringe the just liberty of the press, or the rights of conscience, or to prevent the people of the United States who are peaceable citizens from keeping their arms. James Madison wrote in the Federalist Papers, in the next passage there. See, James Madison wrote that the Constitution was never construed or authorized Congress to infringe on the right to bear arms. Yes, here we go. All you have to do is pay even half-minded attention to what's going on in Washington District of Criminals. And you'll see that those creeps are working harder than ever to bring this country to its knees. That crazy, that stupid, stubborn, arrogant, moron, Obama. See, we can call him anything we want because that's not his name. We don't know who we're talking about. Has almost bankrupted America, forcing Obamacare down the throats. It has permanently closed down over 300,000 small businesses nationwide, and it's just the start.
That's right.
You see, that's because that half-breed now requires all employers to pay the premiums of full health insurance on all their employees at an average cost of $1,600 every month on top of their wages, withholding taxes, and there's not a small business out there that can absorb that kind of financial insanity. And our rulers know it. Obama knows quite well what he's doing, and that was the plan all along. And no, he's way too stupid to come up with this by himself. He's just the front man for the corporate Jews and the communist mobsters who really run things worldwide. What almost nobody in the country realizes is that to fix the entire global economy would be as simple as falling off a log. I could do it myself if I was given the authority. The problem is nobody believes this. Go to the last page, please. Romans chapter 13, verse 1. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no higher power than Yahweh. The powers are to be ordained of Yahweh. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of Yahweh, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For the rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the powers that do that which is good? And the soul shall have praise of the same. For he is the minister of Yahweh to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not a sword in vain. For he is the minister of Yahweh, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Therefore ye must need be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay ye tribute also. For they are Yahweh's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to their dues. Tribute to who tribute is due. Custom to who custom is due. Fear unto whom fear is due. Honor unto whom honor is due. Now, let's bring this up in today's vernacular under the system of the Constitution of the once great United States. Romans chapter 13, verse 1. Let every soul be subject to the Constitution, for there is no law higher than the Constitution in this land. There is no power higher than Yahweh, whose powers, laws, ordained by Yahweh. Whosoever then resisteth the Constitution resisteth the ordinance of Yahweh, so they that resist shall bring damnation to themselves. For the Constitution is not evil to good works, but to those who work evil. So will you not be afraid of the Constitution? Do that which is good and receive praise. Because the Constitution is the minister of Yahweh to you for good. But if you do evil, then be afraid of this, because the Constitution does not bear a sword in vain. The Constitution is the minister of Yahweh, an avenger to execute wrath upon those that do evil. Now, you need to be subject, not only to wrath, but for conscience sake. For this call pay tribute also, for they are Yahweh's ministers to good or evil, looking continually on these matters. Render there to all their works that do not follow the Constitution, tribute where tribute is due, custom where custom is due, fear where fear is due, honor where honor is due. This is where your 501c3 ministers, pastors, prophets, and priests want you to bend over backwards to do what the local government and the township government and the state government and the federal government want you to do in a time of emergency, when it's your responsibility to take care of yourself and your family.
That's right.
Hard times are upon us.
And coming.
Has it gotten any better in the last 10 years?
Hell no.
Here we go down that slippery. This is the grace that Yahweh's Judeo-Christian pastors are spreading around. It's not grace, see, it's grease, sending us right down into the pit, because they will not teach the evil. They will not teach the evil. They'll give you cockatrice eggs and snake eggs. And this is just nothing but a, that's right, pig grease down into the pit. Lawful Disobedience, by Yahweh's name witness, Teacher Ray Bunzow, P.O. Box 143, Roscommon, Michigan. Today is November 23rd, 2013. Be careful. Legal fiction. Poison at the pulpit. Legal fiction. The nightly news broadcast. Legal fiction. Right out of Washington District of Criminals. Legal fiction. Right at the pulpits. You invite it in your house. What is this all about? Filthy lucre.
Yep.
Build my corporate church.
Yep.
My corporate 501c3 FEMA church.
Yep.
And may Yahweh, the creator of heaven and earth, condemn the poison at the pulpit. Bring judgment on this nation, and let's get on with this. Get past it. I second that.